Hello everyone, welcome to this video. And this project is the course Democracy and Education, International Perspectives and Local Reflections. Our course instructor is Dr. Tan, and our members have Chen Sen, Neo CK, Chao Pui Guan, and Wang Yoqi. And here is our content page. And our topic is modernization theory and the democratic development in Hong Kong.
Modernization theory. Some academics have thinks that democracy follows modernization, or the result aspects of economic development, industrialization, urbanization, wealth and education that are also closely interrelated as to form one major factor, which has the political correlate of democracy, because growth in global economic output helped modernize many less developed economics. Economic modernization, which include structural change, like increased rates of urbanization, education, and a rising middle class, unleashes a constellation of social forces with the organization, capability, and education to press for democratic governance. But if modernization theory about democratic transition and stability were correct, Hong Kong could probably already enjoy democracy, as it had apparently attained the necessary condition: high level of wealth, rising middle class, and the lack of extreme and intolerable inequality. But Hong Kong people is very political apathy, particularly the middle class. That reflect democratic of Hong Kong was an anomaly to modernization theory. Hong Kong remained a semi-democratic regime, despite of the high level of socio-economic development. Reasons of Hong Kong democracy transition with a time lag. First, the political culture perspective. Utilitarian feminism is controlled by China traditional Confucian culture and refugee mentality. Hong Kong people focus family interests rather than social interests. So, if the current political and social arrangement doesn't violate and stop their pressure of family interests, Hong Kong people won't care, and no political or coalition could be taken. Political apathy of Hong Kong people resulted in low level of political mobilities, which made no serious effort toward the governance and social stability, and thereby brought about slow progress of democratization. Modernization theory ignored Hong Kong middle class affected by different culture. Second, the power dependency perspective. Hong Kong democratization has been limited even it achieved the necessary conditions by modernization theory. Political culture in Hong Kong was spectator rather than participant. Hong Kong people feel a limited sense of political effectiveness, and they were neared to political action, not aggressive to challenge the authority, because the actual process of change has been largely conditioned by the external factor of power dependency, such as the China government. Modernization theory ignored Hong Kong middle class do not the leading role in Hong Kong political.
Education and received the 9 to 12 years of free education. The liberal study was later added to the academic structure for senior secondary education, which include topics of politics and social issues in a course structure. These subjects about improving students' critical thinking, so as providing cultivative democratic values and culture to students. In recent years, students in Hong Kong became a big impact on social movements. Student activism encouraged students to participate in social issues, made students had a great concern on social justice, but high critical about loyal to the government. Organizations were set up by students to against the injustice policy, such as the Scholarism, the Hong Kong Federation of Students, etc. In this case, student activism pushed Hong Kong forward for the democratic path. On the other hand, let's move on to the older generation. The older generation represents the middle-aged to elderly. In their growing period, education was depoliticization. Education opportunities were little for the civilians. Until 1978, the colonial government provided 9 years of free education, but some students couldn't finish their senior education due to the poor living conditions. Most of the older generations have longer working experience and seek for a stable living environment. They believe that their lifelong experience are more practical than the knowledge towards a better living standard. Apart from this, the influence of social media is greatly affecting the ideology of the older generation. Their identity and ideology were built up by the mass media and collective memories, such as the TVB. Even though it seems that the past economic and political environments led the older generation has a lower education level, there are still some middle class received higher education. But again, due to the depoliticization for the education system, they have fewer opportunities in absorbing the knowledge of democracy. Most of them nowadays focus on their careers or business and look for a stable social situation to maintain the runs of their business. To conclude, the older generation was emphasizing the stability and social welfare more than the democracy. They are more likely to in favor of the government. On the other than the education level, democracy also relates to the level of modernization, which is economic growth. We believe that economic development is another factor that affects democracy progress in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is an international city with an international financial center located in Central. Within a comprehensive economic system, multinational corporations invest and set bases in Hong Kong, which made Hong Kong's GDP significantly increase year by year. According to the graph, it shows that the GDP growth from the 1970 to 2018 with an increase for over 10 times by comparing to 40 years ago. However, even with the success in economic growth, the poor population seems to be increasing and getting serious every year. There are over 1 million of population below the poverty line. The Gini coefficient was 0.539 in 2019 as well. At the right graph, the yellow part represents the population with salaries under 15,000 a month, which clearly shows the serious wealth disparity situation in Hong Kong. Therefore, the current situation of wealthy disparity is not suitable to develop democracy. To conclude, we think that modernization is hard to apply in Hong Kong's current situation. Up to now, there's no universal suffrage in Hong Kong. The Legislative Council election is not fair. The functional constituents is only allowed barely eligible people to vote. Under the one country, two system, things are followed by the basic law, and Hong Kong politics is generally controlled by the communist government. Therefore, although Hong Kong is in accordance with the modernization theory, such as a high level of economic development, high educated public, it is still hard to apply the current situation in Hong Kong.
There are several problems in Hong Kong. Firstly, there is no true universal suffrage, which means that Hong Kong people do not have the right to vote for the chief executive. Second, the controversial of government plans such as the high-speed way project and the North Development plans. The society has serious doubt about the high cost and its development benefits. However, under the system in Hong Kong, many bills can be passed, causing a significant waste of social resources. Finally, the social polarization. Due to the different education level and social influence, there are two major camps in Hong Kong society, which is the pro-democracy camp and the pro-establishment camp. The two factions continue to confront each other and accusing each other on social network. And then is the main democratic process in Hong Kong recently. First is the Umbrella Movement in 2014, and after that is the Legislative Council vote in 2016, and is the recent Hong Kong protesters movement and District Council voting in 2019. This umbrella movement hosted from September to December in Hong Kong. The proximity is that the National People's Congress Standing Committee passed the 831 resolution on the 2017 Chief Executive election and the 2016 Legislative Council election. There is three main demands in this movement, which is withdraw the 2017 Chief Executive election and the 2016 Legislative Council election framework and candidate nomination plan, and second, fight for nomination of citizens for the Chief Executive election, and finally, repeal the legislative constitution, and hope to achieve the true universal suffrage in Hong Kong. There is about 1.2 million people participant in this campaign, which is about 1 out of 6 Hong Kong's population, and we tried many ways we think we can do, such as occupation strike and marching. However, the results show that more than 300 Democrats get injured and about 1,000 occupiers were arrested, and all the protester demands were rejected. And this campaign ended in failure, many people feeling hopeless and powerless, and eventually many Hong Kong people want to give up in the way of fighting for democracy.
So let me introduce the Hong Kong legislative election in 2016. It was the election after the Umbrella Movement, and there was a controversy arose in the election as the Electoral Affairs Commission banned 6 potential candidates to run in an election. The potential candidates include Everett Leung from Hong Kong Indigenous and Chan Ho Tin from the Hong Kong National Party. The Electoral Affairs Commission required all candidates to sign an additional confirmation form in the nomination to declare that their understanding of Hong Kong being an inalienable part of China. Although Everett Leung signed the form, his nomination was rejected by EAC, on the basis that EAC did not believe Leung had sincerely changed his previous stance for independence. It was obviously a censorship of political view and suppression of freedom of thought. Due to the difference of political view, the government disqualified the candidates from election. Since then, more citizens voted in the election, a historic record number of 2.2 million voters, 58% of the registered electorate, and there are 42 seats for the pro-establishment, 27 seats for the anti-establishment, which means the pro-Democrats and localists. The data behind the election, which is the geographical constituency, and there are 1,080,000 of people voted for pro-establishment in 2012. And there are 772,000 of people voted for pro-Democrats in 2012. And in 2016, there are 871,000 of people voted for pro-establishment in 2016. There were 1.1 million of people voted for pro-Democrats and localists in 2016. For the whole voters in 2012, there were 1.8 million, but after 4 years in 2016, there were 2.2 million, and it increased about 40,000. And we can see that there were a sharp increase of Hong Kong voters, and more people prefer to vote for the pro-Democrats and localists. In the figure, we can see that in 2008, 2012, and 2016, the local election, and there are more people who voted for anti-establishment, and there were less than half people voted for pro-establishment. It reflects that although there are more people voted for anti-establishment, the seats in the council are still losing. For the 2019 the extradition bill protest, the cause is the government set up the extradition regulation to extradite Chan suspect to travel in Taiwan. Fugitive offenders and mutual legal assistance in criminal matters legislation bill in 2019. This is a draft law to transfer suspects and legal assistance to jurisdictions such as China, Macau, and Taiwan. The people in Hong Kong worries about losing a high degree of autonomy. The police use excessive force to handle the demonstration in recent months. For the next is the Hong Kong District Council elections, and because of the anti-extradition bill protest, more people prefer to support the pro-Democrats instead of pro-establishment. And there are 2.9 million people voted in the elections, The pro-democrats achieved their victory in Hong Kong history and taking control of 17 of the 18 district councils of Hong Kong, tripling their number of seats from about 124 to around 388. And they also achieved to capture 117 seats in the district council subsectors of the election committee, which is vested with the power to elect the chief executive of Hong Kong. On the data behind the election, there were nearly 1.4 million of voters voted in 2016, but after 3 years, there were 2.9, nearly 3 million of voters vote in 2019, and it increased about 1.5 million people went to vote. And moreover, in the figures, we can see that the top 10 high rates of voters were the places where middle class live. It shows that the middle class did play a significant role in the election and even the democratic process. And in the figure, we can see that since the extradition bill protests have started, there are more and more people registered to become the voter. And in 2019, there are 350,000 new voters. And after the umbrella movement in late 2014, and there were 260,000 became the voters. As we can see that due to the social movement, it did increase the awareness of the Hong Kong citizens. Less people become the Hong Kong pig. Let me talk about the ways to achieve democracy in Hong Kong. Since we have already talked many about the democratic process, we found out more people like to use protests, demonstrations, and large scale of social movement to strike for the real democracy. Maybe someone may say it is not effective to strike for the real democracy or a better future because it needs time and people may sacrifice for it. And however, we can see some positive things, which include the increased the awareness of Hong Kong citizens, and the Hong Kong citizens were united. Before the extradition bill movement, there were many Hong Kong pigs in the society, and they may ignore the politics, and they believe political matters will not affect him or her. And however, during the extradition bill protests, they were awakened, and they thought the bill did matter with them. Therefore, these people may go to register to become the voters, and they believe they can use votes to change something. And we can see that from 2019 district council election. The second is the Hong Kong citizens were united, and in 2014 umbrella movement and 2019 extradition bill protests, we can see that Hong Kong citizens were united. The citizens were united to strive for a better future and democracy. And furthermore, they built their own identity, which is the Hong Kongers. And there are many slogans in the movement and protests, such as I want true universal suffrage, 5 demands, not one less, free Hong Kong revolution now. These slogans is a kind of cultural protest, and through yell out the slogans, it united many citizens who have the same identity. And all in all, Hong Kong should have a better future, and it needs time and people to build up together. And due to the extradition law, we have seen there are more people carry out their civil responsibility, and we can see that from the number of votes and the number participate in demonstration. However, the government would use different ways to compress the people who strive for democracy, such as disqualified your qualification of elections, and even police may use the violent ways to treat them. The path of democracy is tough and difficult, but we think Hong Kong people can do that with unity and a brave heart. And it is our reference page. And thanks for watching.